slowly trickling in. So we will now begin the second pre-event of the 2023 Interfaith Coalition Conference for Global Citizenship. And this time that is titled Peace Dialogue. We will start by watching a short video. So one of our panelists unfortunately could not be here with us today, so it's Dr. Azacharam. She graciously prepared a video message, so we'll take a moment to watch this video.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all. My name is Azacharam, and I have the distinct privilege of giving a short address to the wonderful organizers of this very timely and very critical conversation, a global conversation, shaping our future together, engaged spirituality in the age of crises, and especially now to address you and all the distinguished speakers, participants, and those gathered, thanks to the warm hospitality of the One Buddhism on the theme of religion in the age of super crisis, finding a way in world peace through coexistence and co-prosperity. As a professor of religion and development, I have been privileged to be able to observe and to participate through nearly 2 decades at the United Nations and 4 precious years at Religions for Peace International, to see how the multi-religious dynamics function and deliver peace. In order for such dynamics to function, the multi-religious dynamics, and this is the theme I want to address you with, there are a number of situations which explain why the multi-religious is absolutely important. If we depart from an understanding that religions make a positive difference, that understanding takes into account also the qualification, a very critical qualification, that there are always some religious actors, not religions, but some religious actors, which can also make harm. We cannot argue for the peacefulness of multi-religious coexistence without tackling head-on the challenges presented by certain religious actors. This is not to stand in judgment of whether these religious actors believe that they are right, believe inspired by their religion or not. This is not to stand in judgment of anyone, but it is simply to acknowledge that in the name of religion, many good things happen and some very harmful things happen. This is an important qualifier, not only for our consideration of the role of religions in creating and in being conducive to the realization of peaceful societies. But it is a pointer, a bookmark in our understanding of why the multi-religious can then become very important. So, qualifier number one in terms of context is that we need to understand and be realistic and pragmatic about the fact that some religious actors can be the causes of harm. Discord, disunity, violence, conflict, radicalization, extremism, etc. The second important qualifier is, it's not every religion and any religion that is a source of peaceful coexistence by its very nature. In fact, it is important to understand, again, that it is when religions come together and form the ability for the realization of a common ground that we can possibly find the doctrines of peaceful coexistence. Let me repeat that. It's when religions come together on deeply held, widely shared issues. That is the common ground. That is the doctrine, multi-religious doctrine of peaceful coexistence. The third prerequisite for the reality of a multi-religious peaceful coexistence is that that common ground cannot just be the usual, well, all people are poor, we are suffering inequalities, the climate is getting destroyed, war is rampant. It can certainly include those realizations. But the common ground between religions, that is the doctrine of peaceful coexistence, needs to be the entirety of the human rights agenda. Human rights for all the time, excluding none. That consensus on human rights, for human rights, has to be the doctrine that will proscribe and enable peaceful coexistence. Peaceful coexistence cannot come when some religions advocate for some rights and other religions advocate for other rights, and some religions don't care about rights, and some religions actively struggle against human rights. That does not create the common ground for peaceful coexistence, as multiple examples around us illustrate. Therefore, the common ground needs to be not just an agreement on the basics that are obvious to all of us, but it has to be that same common ground that enabled the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in the first place. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was made possible not because a few governments came together to sign it, but because a number of the world's leading scholars, intellectuals, politicians, civil rights activists, civil society members, all came together over many years to see what was held in common, what the common values to all humankind were, and they used the religious values that are in common, and that made the Universal Declaration of Human Rights possible. In other words, here we are in 2023, re-acknowledging the reality that some of us prefer to overlook and others think they can rise above. The reality that we would not have had human rights today if we had not had our religions yesterday, today and tomorrow, but if we had not had that which is the common ground between all values of all faiths. The common ground of all religious values is human rights. Multi-religious collaboration for peace means having to deal together with the issues on which we do not agree. Means having to struggle together precisely because there are some things we do not agree to. If we only decide to work on that which we agree, the low-hanging fruit, the common ground, what about all the other issues that are causing polarization, extremism, and harm? What good is it if we can form a club of like-minded together
and ignore the rest of the world, do we not simply marginalize more and further? All faiths impose upon us the necessity to believe, not because we always agree, not because we can see what is obvious, but because we don't always agree, because there is discord, because there is tension, because there is radical, fundamental differences. Therefore, we see the divine not only in that which we hold to be like one another, but we see the divine in that which potentially tears us apart and therefore compels us to find that which will bring us together. In this world of penultimate polarization, the era of crisis, as the conference organizers so wisely termed it, in this era of crisis, our reaction of multi-religious peace building has to be the out of the ordinary, the unusual, the challenging, and the difficult. That is where we do not agree, and yet we must find an ability to work together for the rights of all. It is when we have that courage to come together and handle our disagreements civilly, because we see the divine in he or she who is so against what we believe in. It is when we have that courage that we actually see and behold the divine. And it is when we behold the divine that we ultimately serve that purpose. Because the divine is peace. To marginalize, to silence, to oppress, and to subordinate, to lie about one another, that is harm. And people of faith shouldn't be in that business. We need to be in the space where the divine compels us to be courageous. And that means to handle our differences with love, with decency, with civility. That is how we can achieve peaceful coexistence. Once again, I wish to thank the organizers, all Buddhists, and all the co-sponsors, so many who have come together to make this conference possible. I wish you the peace of the divine to always be among you. I wish you always, each one of you, to be embraced by the love of the divine. Thank you.
Special thanks to Dr. KARAM for that passionate and powerful and timely message. And now I'd like to invite to the stage our wonderful moderator and our panelists. We have Reverend Dr. LEFEBURE, and we also have Reverend Toyin Park, who will be representing Dr. KARAM, Reverend Dr. Yoshinori Shinohara, and Reverend Tae-sung. So Dr. LEFEBURE is the co-chair of the ICCGC and the former president of the Society for Buddhist-Christian Studies. He's also the Matteo Ricci Chair of Theology at Georgetown University. He'll be moderating this session, so I'll hand it over to Father LEFEBURE.
I'm delighted to welcome you to our discussion of religion in the age of super crisis, finding a way of world peace through coexistence and prosperity. And I'm honored to welcome our distinguished participants in the discussion, Dr. Azacharam, whose words we've already heard, the Reverend Dr. Yoshinori Shinohara, and Reverend Tae-sung, and also the Reverend Toyin Park. I'd like to begin by sharing the comments that set up the organization of this session to understand the concerns that the speakers were asked to address. The world has stopped. The world is changing dramatically. The time of the world seems to return to world wars, and the global challenges that threaten humanity are menacing us day by day. We can all survive this super crisis. All of us, in one way or another, must solve the accumulated global problems and participate in constructing a new world. Religion has long played an essential role in solving global issues, but today, the role of religion is being questioned. To bring world peace, now is the time for religious leaders to share their wisdom and act together. I'd like to say just a little bit about the background of Dr. Azacharam, because I think it's important for you to have a little bit of the context of her remarkable service to appreciate the force of her message. Dr. Azacharam served until very recently as the Secretary General of Religions for Peace. She was the first Muslim and also the first woman to serve in this role, succeeding William Fenton. She has been a leader in concern for the equitable international distribution of health resources and in promoting theologies of compassion. She was a signatory of the Manresa 2022 Pact, which called for climate improvement measures in cities across the globe. So we're very honored to have her message delivered to us. Our first speaker, the Reverend Dr. Yoshinori Shinohara, serves as the Secretary General of the Asian Conference of Religions for Peace and the Secretary General of Religions for Peace, Japan. He is a graduate of Gakuin Seminary in Tokyo, and he received one master's degree in conflict resolution from the University of Bradford and another master's degree in public policy from the University of Tohoku. He received a PhD in Human Security Studies from the University of Tokyo. He is an ordained Dharma teacher in Rishoku Sakai, and so we're pleased to welcome him.
Thank you very much. So, good evening, not good afternoon, sorry. So, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak at this wonderful conference. I prepared for the script. So I came from Tokyo, Japan. So it is August today, now. So August is the month in which the World War II ended. It is a very important time to think about the issues of the war and peace. In Japan, various memorial services are held to commemorate the victims of the war. On August 6th, and 9, a lot of memorial services for the victims of the atomic bombs were held in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. On August 15th, the last day of the war, the Japanese government and many groups, including religious organizations, held a memorial service to sincerely reflect on Japan's responsibility for the war that caused tremendous damage, suffering to the people of Asia, and to both the never to repeat such mistakes. In particular, the memorial services for the victims of war, organized by the Federation of New Religious Organizations of Japan on 14th of August, is deeply meaningful, jointly held by various religious groups. So this year marks the 58th year that more than 60 religious organizations have gathered at the National Cemetery for war dead in Tokyo to offer their sincere condolence to the victims of all wars and pledge a spirit of absolute non-war. So I attend this memorial service every year in order to reaffirm my heart in absolute non-war. So this conviction has always been strong in my heart as I carried out the duties of Secretary General of SCRP. SCRP is a regional organization of religions of peace in Asia, founded 47 years ago. ACRP is currently a network of 22 countries, which participations from various religious leaders. 2 years ago, at my inauguration as a Secretary General of ACRP, I expressed my determination that in building peace in Asia, I would never forget that Japan brought much suffering to the people of Asia through war. I believe this spirit of repentance and remorse is essential for those who will be responsible for building peace in the future. It is the determined of our predecessors who established the religions for peace 53 years ago. The following passage from the founding declaration reads, as men and women of religions, we confess in humility and penance that we have very often betrayed our religious ideals and our commitment to peace. It is not the religion that failed to the cause of peace, but the religious people. This betrayal of religion can and must be corrected. This is a statement, repentance and remorse, that the religious people failed to prevent and stop World War II, in which tens of millions of people died. This contrition is the primary reason for the creation of religions of peace. Today, I would like to introduce first experience of encounter the international interfaith dialogue. So it was my experience of youth exchange program at the Korean conference, Religions of Peace, KCRP, and Religions of Peace Japan, that made me aware of the need to strengthen my eye on this history of war as a real experiences. In 2005, when I was 34 years old, I visited Seoul in Korea for first time to participate in Korean-Japan Youth Exchange Program. There, young religious people from Korea and Japan would share life together and discuss various issues ranging from peace issues to daily life. I practically learned a lot about Japan's inhumane acts in the past and had lively discussions about how to foster friendship between Korea and Japan. There is one symbolic event that I still remember. On the day of that exchange program in Seoul, I was riding in a cab with KCRP staff members. After a while, the cab driver and KCRP staff started a small argument. Since it was spoke in Korean, I couldn't not understand it. But later, the staff told me that the driver complained a bit about why he had picked up a Japanese person. The staff member then countered that since he is my friend, what was problem? So, as I listened to this story, I was again reminded of the cruelty of Japan's actions during the war. At the same time, I was moved by KCRP staff who welcomed me as a friend. For the first time, I truly realized the possibility of developing a friendship with Korean. To this day, I'm still in sincere gratitude for this kind of act of that staff. So far, Korea-Japan Youth Exchange Program has been held 14 times and has continued to be held for more than 30 years. I believe that this exchange is what true religious cooperation must be, and it is the ideal model that I would like to realize in my international religious cooperation activities. So now, thanks to the passionate of our predecessors, Religions for Peace has marked 50 years anniversary. During these 50 years, the structure and activities have been enriched. In today's global society, peace activities through interfaith dialogues are not uncommon, and they are increasingly attracting attention and importance in international politics. What is the mission and the role of religions of peace in the future? To examine this question, on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of Religions of Peace, I and Religions of Peace Japan organized a special committee with youth religious leaders of Religions of Peace Japan to discuss the strategic plan for the year 2030. So this agenda 2030 begin by imagining the world in 2030. The United Nations estimates the world population will continue to grow, adding about 85 million people each year, reaching 8.5 billion by 2030. Demand for the essential resources such as water, energy, and food is projected to increase by more than 14% by 2030. And there is a mortal concern about the imminence of the crucial resource necessary for human survival. The climate change issues is a more crisis. And then what's the meaning of the possibility of the cascade of the global warming events will be high, that there will be no turn back. So, on the other hand, as a previous panel mentioned, technology and such as AI, robots, computers will continue to develop expansionally and have a great impact on humanity. In the future, AI will be present in all areas of life, work, education, and medicine, ushering in a period of great change in people's lifestyle and communications, as well as in society's rules and values. While an extremely efficient and convenient society will bring future possibility, but it will be also an era in which the meaning of human existence, such as human dignity, individual autonomy, and relationship with others will be questioned even more. So while envisioning a world in 2030, so this will be the case. Religions of Peace Japan has set forth 6 agendas on which it will place particular emphasis in the future. So I cannot mention all of them, but I would like to introduce some of them. So Agenda 1 is strengthening the global religious networks to achieve international survival goals. One of the major pillars of this Agenda 2030 is to support and contribute to the realization of our common goals, such as SDGs, the Paris Agreement on climate change, which have become the international community's last resort goals. So this is because in a world where more than 800 million people are suffering from hunger, and the survival of the human race is threatened by rapid environmental degradation, the realization of the world where no one is left behind is a goal that our predecessors have devoted themselves to since the founding of Religions of Peace. So Agenda 2, to working together with Global South to end the climate crisis. On paramount importance to stopping the climate crisis is to listen to and include the voices of those in Global South who are most valuable. We need to look at their real suffering from global environmental plunders and find international solidarity movements from there. Religions of Peace Japan will respond to various movements for change, that are developing in global south and call on developed societies to participate in them. Agenda 3, dialogue with politics for a world without war through non-violence. Non-violence is a core principle of religions of peace movement. The idea of building peace by fostering a deterrent system through military means is incompatible with religious thought. Originally, the essence of the theory of deterrence by military means was born out of the distrust between human beings with intimidation, threats, and suspicions towards the other side lying in the background. Such a relationship of the suspicion and mistrust in turn increase mutual hatred and rise to the risk of war. This is why Religions Peace Japan from its inception has rejected peace building through excessive military means and advanced non-violence. Okay, finally, Agenda 4 is a dialogue with the business community to eliminate extraordinary economic disparities. The world is currently experiencing the greatest increase in inequality in its history. The wealth held by about 2,000 wealthy people is greater than the combined wealth of the 4.6 billion people in poverty. The disparity between the super rich and the rest of the population has reached unimaginable proportions, and this unescapable situation cannot be overlooked by religious people. So, Religions for Peace Japan, we strongly argue cooperation with the poor and the suffering and the excluded. Agenda 5 and Agenda 6 is, I cannot introduce. So, I would like to include. So, what is required in 2030 world? We need firm ideas, firm principles that bring comfort and hope to people, and action based on these ideas and principles. I believe religion can play a major role in this regard. There are many religions in the world, and they preach the doctrine of peace and offer a salvation of people. Since its founding, Religions of Peace has sought to bring together the diverse resources of religions to achieve common action. As we look towards the world of 2030, we must more firmly bring together the wisdom of our religious traditions and work together to take strong action toward a common agenda. And if the collective impact generated from this will affect various areas of the world and society, we will realize our goal of a world in which no one is left behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. Our next speaker, the Reverend Kim Tae-sung, received his bachelor's degree from Wonkwon University and a master's degree in international studies from Cheong'an University. He completed the PhD program in international studies at Cheong'an University. He's ordained in the tradition of Won Buddhism and serves as the Secretary General for the Korean Conference of Religions for Peace. So welcome.
Thank you very much, Professor Leo. And also, I really appreciate the Buddhism that prepared this wonderful conference. This session is very meaningful because there are global levels and then local and the regional levels take responsibility. They are representatives that joined our session. My speech is what is called religion and the religionist in a time of a social crisis. I'd like to some comment about what our religious role. The COVID-19 pandemics, which was begin by early 2020s, has created disruptions in all areas of societies, culture, religions, and the politics that all of us have never experienced before. There has provided an opportunity all mankind to become aware of new problems faced in the world. In addition to summer, the world was hit by heavy rain and have not been experienced in centuries, resulting in the loss of life, material damages, and the record-breaking heat wave in many countries. And the war between Russia and Ukraine began last year and still unfold with no clear end in sight. In the world where humans are destroying the ecological environment for human convenience and the desire, the countries are not hesitating to invade their neighbor for their interests. The world is facing crisis period with the survival of human is uncertain and the future peace is threatened. In the face of various crises facing human, what role the religious communities play to overcome crisis and creating peace? I think the first role is the communication overcome conflict. In the South Korea first pandemics, and began the March of 2020 in religious organization called this Shincheonji after outbreak coronavirus impact in late 2019. At the beginning first pandemic, 7 religious leaders held their emergency meeting, declared the religious activities would be suspended, and announced that all religious facilities would be closed for 1 month, and that religious activities would be conducted online instead. These efforts were successful in various groups and the organizations in our societies, even companies, refrained from their actions. As a result, the first wave of pandemic was stopped. The second pandemic wave began at August the same year. Our religious community once again suspended religious activities. This allowed the second wave pass safely. This suspension of religions contributed great to stop COVID-19 pandemics. But stopping religious activities for the first time in historic Japan conflict within the religious communities. In addition, various organizations are also dissatisfied with government excessive regulations. And the dispute grow as a way of the overcome intra-religious and the social conflict in face of coronavirus. The religious community proposed the formation of a task force team for the emergency involved the government and then religious and the social organizations, which is government accepted, and the public-private consultation body called this Daily Life Recovery Committees was formed. As a representative of religious committees, I attended weekly meetings, committees to convey the opinion of religious communities. And also other social organizations, representatives, they join. And then they are also convey the various opinion to government. This gave us two opportunity to overcome social conflict caused by pandemic. Through dialogue of communication, the committee operated until end of pandemics. playing central role of communication. Lack of communication is frequently cause of humanity's abilities to achieve peace. Lack of communication between individual groups and organizations and the religious and the nations lead to conflict. And the history has witnessed countless examples of conflict. The establishment activities into religious dialogue, cooperation organizations such as like RF International, RF Asia, and the KCR, they based on such a dialogue communications between religions. And the religions have an important role of dialogue between nation and nation, individual and groups. Second role is of mediators, reconcilers. All religions is fundamentally often the repentance. All religions teach the fundamental way to go forgiveness, leading to new life through change one's mind. The one Korean Protestant leaders, Reverend Kim Sang-gun, he has been suffering from rest of life after witness the murder of his father during Korean War. When his parents was taken by North Korean soldiers, tortured to death, even though the war ended when Korean War divided. His heart moving to tears, and he suffered terrible, painful, whenever he showed the stories of North Korea on the TVs. Afterward, Reverend Kim decided to become the faster. And while learning the Bible, he cannot follow Jewish word to love his enemies. But through his deep faith, he realized true love. Later he became representatives South Korea by inter-Korean civilian exchange, visited North Korea, where he was told that he was free from his rejection and the painful toward the North Korea, and came to love them truly. The love of forgiveness and the mercies. All those religions are basic spirit of beginning peacemaker in conflict and the disputes. All religions teaches spiritual peacemaking. In the middle of conflict and the dispute, there are many conflicts and disputes worldwide, including war in Ukraine. Religious people can contribute to world peace by actively fulfilling their role of mediators and reconcilers. People beyond this dispute and conflict based on their faith. Second role of changing people's mind. The environment problem is faced are becoming major problem in threatening mankind, future, and great endangering human survival. To fundamentally understand and overcome environment issues, we need to understand fundamental causes of environment degradations. The core problem is the environmental destruction, is progress and development of human convenience. Humans have been destroyed natural convenience for mass productions, comfort through industrial revolutions. At the heart of religious environment is a shift our perception of the natures. The first to recognize that the nature is not separate from us, but one with us. Buddha referred to the theory of causalities, which states all things independent and interconnected based on each other. Venerable Tae-sung, founder of Buddhism, teaches that all things in universe are in a relationship of interdependence grace. And that I and all objects are just one. If we realize that all things, nature, are not separate from us, we can realize that the distorted nature is to harm ourselves. Secondly, we need to shift our thinking from the growth-oriented life to life of self-sufficiency, which is development of a scientific civilization. Humanity has pursued materialistic life, seeking more positions and convenience. We have been destroyed the ecological environment to satisfy our desire for more position. The transit from growth-oriented life to life of self-sufficiency is a process to search for more meaningful life, inner enrichment. It is a meaningful journey to seeking better intrinsic values, sustainable living, and inner peace. Religious people should reflect on human history to see if religious and has a pupil, its role of a peacemaker, or it is contributed the causes of pre-success of the various conflict. Unfortunately, religion has been causes many human conflict. This is because of religion's losses instincts of value and spiritualities. When it's become the secularized of power, the work, interfaith dialogue, and the cooperation can contribute to this reorientation of religion. It is often said that the interreligious dialogue is the mirror of oneself, which means is you can look back, reflect oneself through neighboring religions. Our interfaith dialogue cooperation organization aim to promote such interreligious encounters and dialogues, and to pursue the common goods and the humanity together. Professor Oh Gang-nam said that religious and the religious should be in debate, encounter, and dialogue. This emphasis that interreligious dialogue should go beyond the level of simple promote mutual friendship, but should be based on mutual spiritualities, which is the goal of interreligious cooperation organizations. Such a spiritual encounter will be leading to freedom from the all religious conflict and disputes. This will be a path of peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your remarks. Our next participant was invited on rather short notice to be part of this discussion after we learned that Dr. Azacharam was not able to be with us. And so she was not asked to provide a formal paper, but we welcomed her informal participation. So I'm very pleased to welcome the Reverend Do-yeon Park, the co-chair of the Committee of Religious NGOs at the United Nations. She is a minister of the Manhattan Won Buddhist Temple and a representative of Won Buddhism to the United Nations. She also serves as the Buddhist chaplain at both Columbia University and New York University. And so I'm pleased to welcome Do-yeon.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. Again, thank you for kind welcoming, and I'm honored to be sitting here with honorable guest speakers here. Again, I'm Do-yeon Park. I first want to express again passing the deep regrets from Professor Azacharam. For not being here with you all today. She really wanted to come here as much as you wanted to see her in this stage. Because I just got a text message from her a couple days ago. Again, she's sending her great regrets here. I had a privilege to working closely with Professor Azacharam since the first year I moved to New York City, which was 2008. At the time, she was working at the UN, and she was doing a lot of faith-based leadership work in the UN area. So while I was looking at her video message, first I would like to also remind you that I'm sure you all got this report. This is a whole collection of all of our presenters' speeches here. Particularly page 92, you will see Dr. Azza's extended message. So I hope you get a chance to see her read her whole presentation in this page. And while I was listening to her video message just now, I maybe would like to just reiterate a couple points, not just because she presented it here, but mainly because I also felt the same or deep connection to her sharings. From her a little over 10 minutes video message, what stood in my mind is that she talks a lot about common ground, the common purpose, or always common ground that our gathering here today is really for our common ground. That is nicely she connected to the work of human rights that we all kind of working together here. Especially in the working with a lot of NGO communities at the UN based in New York area, we talk a lot about human rights, but this human rights is not only for the human, meaning that it really includes all the environmental issues and our contribution to save and protect our Mother Earth as well. So this finding the common ground is something that we all working together, and I think we can all come together to that ground of love, compassion, kindness, and justice as well. Towards her last kind of sharing of her video message, I don't know about you, but one thing that really stuck in my mind is that she talks about multi-religious peace building. Our dialogue, our meeting is that we're dealing with the issues that we're not agreeing on. And she strongly made this message that we need to work on the issues, particularly on the issues that we do not agree on. And I remember for myself, questioning myself that, when we gather like this gathering, we talk about, is it really possible for us from many different backgrounds building a peaceful coexistence? We all know that we are different, but then is it possible truly that we find the common ground? And I think for myself, I used to think that that's impossible. Like, no way, I don't think I can be a good friends with everyone in this room, I think. But then, I think her point that I got today is that even if we find all the things that we do not agree with, but still we need to make an effort to find the common ground. And in a very practical sense, because I see myself, I have a lot of friends and teachers and all people in my life, and I don't really agree on everything with everyone. But still, I think I'm a pretty good relationship with many of you sitting here, unless you think otherwise. So, from our family circle, right? As a family that maybe with your parents, with your siblings, we always kind of fight over some stupid things with the different ideas, different understandings, but still, because we find this common ground as a family members, as a community together, we are able to find that ground. We may have different expressions for that, but still I think we need to remember that aspect of how we can come up with our ability to cultivate this ability to find the common ground for not only for our particular community, but for all. Not only for the human community, again, in the Buddhist context, it says all sentient beings. So for the all sentient beings, how we can find our common ground, that is the one thing. Something that I think for most of us, we can think about it. I don't really have the right clear answer for everyone here, but still our life is this journey to find that answers for ourselves. So that was something I took from Professor Karam's video. And again, I'm very honored to be in this panel. Thank you.
So I'd like to thank each of our speakers. From Yoshinori Shinohara, we learned about the determination for peace in Asia requiring repentance and remorse. And as a citizen of the United States, I'd just like to say how important this is for us as a national agenda that we have not yet accomplished. Often we minimize the damage that the United States did, especially during the Second World War, especially with the direct targeting of civilian populations, the massive bombing of German and Japanese cities. And so I just want to underscore how important this point is for all nations to move forward. And then we heard it reflect on the demands on natural resources, the changing challenges, how important it is to listen to the voices of the Global South. From Kim Tae-sung, we heard very importantly about the role of communication and the challenge of the whole pandemic of the coronavirus and the social conflict that it caused. And then the hope that religious actors can be mediators leading to new life through changing one's mind. This, I think, is one of the most important themes in interreligious discussions. In Christianity, the word we translate as repentance in the Greek New Testament is metanoia, which literally means changing one's mind. And so this is a point on which I think Christians can learn from the rich Buddhist tradition of how we think changes everything in our lives. This is probably the opening line of the Dhammapada of Shakyamuni Buddha. And then he went on to talk about how important this practice of changing people's minds is for peacemaking and for addressing the ecological crisis. And I'd like to thank Do-young for kind of recapping a number of the themes of Azacharam. From Azacharam, I just want to highlight her passionate appeal for human rights as a common ground for multi-religious collaboration. She was quite critical of some religious actors who cause harm in the name of religion. This, to my mind, is one of the greatest dangers that we face and one of the greatest complications for the whole project of interreligious collaboration. She mentioned the collaboration of many, many different religious and intellectual leaders in the drafting of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights after the Second World War. One of the major Catholic contributors to the discussion was Jacques Maritain, a French Catholic philosopher steeped in the natural theology of Thomas Aquinas and opened a dialogue with absolutely everybody. He studied Taoism in China and wrote very positively about it. And he noted a paradox. He said, we can agree on human rights as long as we don't ask about the foundation for them. Because he recognized that philosophically we're often very, very different. But nonetheless, he was hopeful that we can work together. And so I'd like to just invite each of our discussants, if you would like to reflect any further on this challenge that Azacharam has presented in terms of finding common ground in your work. And just ask you also to reflect further, if you would like, about what are the challenges and frustrations you encounter in concrete situations, and then what are the opportunities in those same situations for moving forward constructively. So I invite each of you to offer your thoughts.
Thank you so much. So, I think it's important it's a religious freedom issues, religious freedom in the conflict situation. So survey, a recent survey in the United States mentioned 79% of the countries that under the restriction and the limitation of the freedom of religions. So religion is freedom of religions means two means. One is so anybody can believe any religions. Anybody can practice religious activities. This is one meaning. The second meaning is meanings of religion is sometimes betrayed and condemned some sins or bad things to the people. So, in my case, in my organizations, Religions of Peace can responsibility for the conflict, but we cannot cover all of the conflict politically and economically. We can do, but it's indirect. Most important primary target is for us. Religions of Peace is we need to be safe among freedom of religions, so we can control. Not control. We can protect abuse of religions, and also we can urge religious people to engage in the peace activities. Two things: religion can contribute, and religion we can stop religions to condemn some sin and bad things. So this is conflict areas. We focus on the role of the actor of the religions. This is my understanding of religions of this primary approach.
The Shinohara already mentioned that there are many still the obstacle to religious freedom in each countries. Already we are, I'm also served the ACR and KCRP, so, and we visited many countries to conflict areas, religious conflict areas, and we find out that there are many conflicts reason of the history or some political issues, and also major religion and the small religious discrimination, this existence in the world. So we are trying to, as a religious communities or religious cooperative organizations, intervention about these conflicts. And then this is very much a good result because of our as a religion, yes, they are very understand each other. So through they are much more understand to how to realize the peace in the as under the cooperation with us. This is very strong our action-oriented processing by ACRP and RFP International or KCRPs. So our common goal is to how to we realize the peace in their society or in the other society and in the world. That is our common goals and common ideas. Thank you.
Maybe I can share from some of my rather short experience in this interfaith, multi-faith community working here is that, yes, I do see at times we do go over different conflicts. For instance, in order for us to have this space together, I cannot imagine how difficult it would be to prepare this conference in the backside. So for me, my understanding and my learning process is that one thing is from the Professor Azacharam's words. She says something about we struggle together. So I try to see, and that is my own personal practice as well. I think I now am able to see a lot of conflicts in terms of process, in terms of what we call, particularly from the Buddhist expression of impermanence. Because yes, I am personally learning and growing every day, weeks, month, year. And this interfaith gathering and the dialogue is also growing together. So yes, sometimes I personally struggle with some other people, even though we're gathering together for the common ground. But at the same time, we may have different ideas. Sometimes I have to kind of give up my own ideas. Sometimes I have to just kind of shut down my own ideas to make the work going, right? But again, I think that every process is a part of our life. part of this reality. So whatever happens, whatever into this world, I think for me the main idea of what am I learning here, what am I contributing to this particular time and space. And maybe that can be a little too much of my practice Buddhist approach, but I think that's something that we all can do here as an individual, as a religious people here. And that's why I see the hope in the midst of all this crazy reality here. So seeing everything as a part of our learning and growing experience. And then sometimes maybe I can lose my hope, but still, then I can get the hope from others. That's why we're living together with all different people. So that's the main reason for me to be part of this conversation today as well.
Thank you very, very much to each of our speakers. Now we have a few minutes left, so I'd like to invite your questions. So I especially like to invite the students to be brave. But anyone, the participants in the conference as well. Here, we have a mic over here, please. Here. Put your hand up, please. Yeah. Please speak up. Yeah, stand up and introduce yourself, please.
Hello everyone. I'm Shikana. I'm a student at Seisei University in Tokyo, Japan. I major in global citizenship studies from Miss Kenty. Thank you for the precious opportunity now. Mr. Shinohara said, share Iran, Japanese, and Korean. So now, I wanted young people from Korea and Japan to interact and build a good relationship to happen. Well, I am interested in the effect of the global war on the global environment. Yes, the effect of war on the global environment. So, do you think global environment problem and military power can coexist? No, I'm not good at it. A Christian in Japan? Yes, sorry. 地球環境と軍事力は共生することができるのでしょうか。教えていただきたいです。
Thank you very much. This is a very important question. I like this kind of question, because this is actually certain relations between military and environmental issues. So certain effective. There's a relationships actually. So I remember that 2010, just 12 years ago, I was young. I was youth leader of the elections of peace. And then together with international youth members, dispatch the campaign for the degrees, and eliminate degrees expenditure was the military. And this is the money to devote to the protection of the environment. So this means real connections. So recently, military expenditure is growing up. It's rapidly growing up. It's for past decade. So according to the Stockholm International Institute, Peace Institute mentions, so global military expenditure is high in the past. And on the other hand, the climate change issues also is increased more crucial, it's very severe. So one is the data in the 12 years ago campaigns. So there is a relationship between military expenditure and global warming. The proceedings is the same directions. That means we need to decrease the military expenditure and the money we use, the money for the military for use to the environment. So 12 years ago, I calculated one of 10% of military expenditure in the world. If we are 10% of the total number of the military expenditure to the protection environment, so we can progress the protection of the environmental issues. So we call the 10% decrease military expenditure and then devote and provide those funds to the money. This is I got the survey from United Nations calculation. This is I think 12 years ago's memory, but little bit uncertain maybe, but you can easily to find out the connection between military expenditure and also, of course, military actions. Of course, military action is a tremendous, damage to the environment. This is everybody knows. Thank you.
We just have a couple minutes left. So would you like to have a mic over here, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Ichiran. Buddhist-Dharma name is Bobo. Nice to meet you. So, I'm very pleased to meet many Buddhist friends who I know. But this moment is a very new experience to sit together and meet other religious people. Very interesting. Listen to other religious opinion, whatever. I think it is very useful and meaningful to make friends and dialogue. I think we need more this kind of a seminar or conference. I think we need an open mind for other religious people. So I'd like to ask Professor Tae-sung, who is Secretary General of ACIP. Would you tell us what's the best way to make friends between Christianity and Buddhism? As you mentioned about what one Christian minister's story, So I think in Korea, I don't know other countries' leaders, much don't know about Korea's religious problem in Korea, especially Buddhism and Christianity. So today, I saw many religious people, but I cannot see the Protestant people. So, once again, I'd like to ask you, because you know Korean religious situation, that's why would you please tell us the best way to make good friends, and we need more dialogue between Buddhism and Christianity. And secondly, I'd like to ask moderator Leo Pinopo, who is the president of between Buddhism and Christianity studies. So would you tell us general suggestion or general idea to coexist or to make a good friend between Buddhism and Christianity? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just be brief, please.
Okay. Thank you. Your questions. I'm served a long time Interfaith Dialogue organizations. I thinking there are three levels to interfaith dialogue and the interfaith cooperation between among the religions. First stage is to friend issues. And then Reverend Venerable, you already mentioned how to make a friendship. It's very simple to sit together, sharing idea, and then have a together meals, sometimes alcohol. It's very much useful. But it's not complete. We can process in second step is to implement the common goods. This is very important. Already our interfaith organizations, RFP International, RFP Asia, RFP Korea, they are much more implemented the common goods. The society issues, national issues, global issues, we are response. And then finally, the final step is we are meeting spirituality realities. This means we are deeply understand, respect each others. This is become one of our families, one of our real friends. No more enemies, no more conflict among the religions. This is final steps. That is our goal. Our interfaith organization's goal. Final stages we meet between religions. Thank you.
Some years ago, I chaired a week-long session on Buddhist-Catholic dialogue around the world. Everyone agreed the key to Buddhist-Catholic dialogue is lunch. Over lunch, neighbors talk to neighbors. They learn, you're concerned about this, well, I'm concerned about this. And we step out of ideological positions and get to know each other and then become friends. I heard one Vietnamese Buddhist woman say, for her, the great takeaway of Buddhist-Catholic dialogue was, not all Catholics are bad. There's a few good ones. So she had many negative images from French colonial times. But when you get to know individuals and develop a relationship, then there's a possibility of realizing the prejudices aren't really true. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you to our wonderful moderator and panelists again. And lunch is very important, but so is the break time. So that's why this is to be followed by a break. We're going to break until 4:40 p.m. The opening ceremonies will start at 4:45. So we ask that you come here by 4:40 p.m. The center has also asked me, please do not bring any food or drink into the hall. Enjoy the refreshments outside. So enjoy your break, and again, see you again at 4:40 p.m.